Today we are talking about 5 elements of private practice, and these are elements that are often overlooked but really important. These are also elements that are going to save you a ton of time if you put a little bit of thought into them now. And who doesn't want more time? So in order to save you some time, we're going to jump right into the video. But before we do, just so you know, there are links down below to the time codes and timestamps so you can skip around the video if you want. There's also a display here on the screen of the different time codes. Also, if you haven't done so already, please do go ahead and subscribe and hit the thumbs up button on this video. It really is helpful, but only if you want to. There is no pressure. So these elements of private practice are often overlooked because they're non-essential items, meaning they're not required for you to start a private practice, but they are still really helpful. So if someone wants to get started right away, they might just skip these steps or wait and save them for later. But as someone who's been in private practice for some time, I can tell you that investing in these things up front is really helpful, and it's going to save you a ton of time in the long run. The first element to not overlook is branding, or something like a logo. Now, I am no design or marketing expert, but I did know a logo was important, and for me, I wanted a logo for my private practice that was authentic to who I was and also fairly professional looking, at least as professional as I could make it. So I invested a good deal of time and energy into researching logos and actually creating one for myself. Now, I am really glad I did this up front before starting a private practice. If I was to bypass this step or to save it for later, I would have run into a few problems. One, this logo has become recognizable with my private practice. So it's on my website, it's on my documents, and things like that. If I was to change that logo after already starting and establishing a private practice, it might be confusing for people, and we don't want people to be confused. Second, if I was to recreate the logo or to make a new logo now, I would have to go back and edit all those documents and edit the website. And this would take a ton of time. And once you get started in private practice, time is of the essence. Similar to branding, another element to not overlook is advertising. So where are you going to market your private practice? People usually do this on Psychology Today, Alma, Monarch, and a whole bunch of others. Now, I know that these places also typically have monthly fees associated with them for having an active profile. And in the beginning, when we're first starting a private practice, we want to keep startup costs as low as possible. So we may be tempted to hold off on this. Now, I will say, after being in private practice for some time, I realized that many people, when searching for a therapist, are going to look online. So it would be really helpful to invest perhaps some time into creating a profile and some money into maintaining one of these profiles so that when someone is searching for a therapist online, they have the potential of finding you. The third element to not overlook, and this is really important, is contact information. Things like phone numbers, email addresses, mailing addresses, that kind of thing. I know a lot of people grab the first Gmail email address they can, or they grab the first Google Voice phone number they can, and those things are fine. But I really want you to think about which contact information you can grow into. Meaning, when you get your Gmail address, is this something you can envision using 5-10 years from now? Or do you plan on having a different name for your business down the line? Or your phone number, does the area code match? So if you are a provider in New York, do you have a New York area code? You really want to think about this because your email, your phone number, all that stuff gets sent out to clients right away. It's on all your business documents, and you really start operating with these elements of your practice right away. And to make a change is really difficult because now you have to change all your documents. You have to inform everyone who already has your old contact information, not to mention things like your malpractice insurance, all that kind of stuff have this contact information on there. So when it comes to contact info, definitely think in terms of how you could grow into the phone number or how you can grow into the Gmail address. It is really important, and it's going to save you a ton of time in the long run. The fourth element to not overlook is your documentation templates. Now, a while back, I made a video all about how to start a private practice. And in that video, I talked about the importance of documentation and how in fact it is required as part of private practice. Now, although documentation is required, templates that you use for documentation vary from provider to provider. So for example, we all need to write individual progress notes after a session. However, the template we use to write the progress note is going to be different depending on where we got it. Now, in order to get started as fast as possible, people usually use generic templates that they find online or that are built into their medical record system. Now, the problem with this is that after using these generic templates for several months, you become really used to them and it becomes part of your workflow. Now, you may find that perhaps it's missing a crucial element that you need to add in later, or perhaps you need to redo it. Maybe you've spoken to a healthcare attorney and they've told you, well, this is the way you keep documentation as securely and as safely and as thoroughly as possible. And so maybe you have to change your template. And if that's the case, it's going to cause a big disruption in your workflow. Not to mention, you're going to have to update your system with this new template. It can be a real big headache. So I would encourage you to think and put some time and energy into creating really thorough templates before even getting started. So perhaps consulting a healthcare attorney would be a good place to start. This is going to save you a ton of time in the long run. Trust me, you're going to be really thankful you did it. The fifth element, or elements to not overlook, are the tools, the software, the hardware that you're going to use on a daily basis to operate your private practice. So for example, how are you going to obtain electronic signatures? How are you going to store medical records? How are you going to video chat with a client? All these things are crucial to running your private practice. Now, in order to keep startup costs down, people usually go for all the free trials that they can, and then they'll decide on which tools work best once they've already established their practice. Now, it's great to use free trials. I have done that myself. However, I want to encourage you to use free trials and to decide on tools even before seeing your first client. Now, the reason for this is twofold. One, the tools that you decide to use and get comfortable using become part of your workflow. And two, they also become part of the client's workflow. So for example, before starting my private practice, I knew I would need to get electronic signatures. Now that involves work on my end and also the client's end as well. Not much, but it is some work. And so before even seeing my first client, I did do a lot of research and developed a way that I could obtain that signature and that they could give me the signature. If I was to change that system now, it would be a huge disruption for both me and all the clients that I work with. And so I'm really glad to have saved myself that time by doing the research up front on which tools I wanted to use in the long run. So that is it for today's video. Hopefully this was helpful for you. Hopefully you learned something. And as always, if there's something you want me to talk more about, do go ahead and leave a comment down below. Also, if you haven't done so already, please do go ahead and subscribe down below. And also, if you haven't looked down there, there is a link to my provider newsletter. I put out a newsletter each month for providers with referral resources, tips, and other things like that. Also, if you sign up for that, you'll get some free DBT resources. However, until next time, I look forward to seeing you soon.